Chapter 21 of Book 1 of Prior Analytics by Aristotle, translated by Octavius Owen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 21 of Syllogisms with one proposition contingent and the other simple in the third figure. If, however, one premise signifies the in esse, but the other the contingent, the conclusion will be that a thing is contingent to, and not that it is present with another, and there will be a syllogism, the terms subsisting in the same manner as the previous ones. For, first, let them be affirmative, and let A be in every C, but B contingent with every C. B, C, then being converted, there will be the first figure, and the conclusion will be that A is contingently present with a certain B. For when one premise in the first figure signifies the contingent, the conclusion also was contingent. In like manner, if the proposition B, C, be of the simple in esse, but the proposition A, C, be contingent, and if A, C, be negative, but B, C, affirmative, and either of them be pure, in both ways the conclusion will be contingent, since again there arises the first figure. Now it has been shown that where one premise in that figure signifies the contingent, the conclusion also will be contingent. If, however, the negative be annexed to the minor premise, or both be assumed as negative through the propositions laid down themselves, there will not indeed be a syllogism, but by their conversion there will be, as in the former cases. Nevertheless, if one premise be universal, and the other particular, yet both affirmative, or the universal negative, but the particular affirmative, there will be the same mode of syllogisms, for all are completed by the first figure, so that it is evident there will be a syllogism of the contingent, and not of the in esse. If, however, the affirmative be universal, and the negative particular, the demonstration will be per impossible. For let B be with every C, and A happen not to be with a certain C. It is necessary then that A should happen not to be with a certain B, since if A is necessarily with every B, but B is assumed to be with every C, A will necessarily be with every C, which was demonstrated before, but by hypothesis A happens not to be with a certain C. When both premises are assumed indefinite or particular, there will not be a syllogism, and the demonstration is the same as in universals, and by the same terms. Example 1. Something white is not an animal. It happens that something white is not a man. It is necessary that every man should be an animal. Something white is not a horse. It happens that something white is not a man. It is necessary that no man should be a horse. It happens that something white is not an animal. Something white is not a man. It is necessary that every man should be an animal. It happens that some animal is not a horse. Something white is not a man. it is necessary that no man should be a horse. Chapter 22. Of syllogisms with one premise necessary and the other contingent in the third figure. If one premise be necessary, but the other contingent, the terms being affirmative, there will be always a syllogism of the contingent. But when one is affirmative, but the other negative, if the affirmative be necessary, there will be a syllogism of the contingent non in esse. If however it be negative, there will be one both of the contingent and of the absolute non in esse. There will not however be a syllogism of the necessary non in esse, as neither in the other figures. Let then first the terms be affirmative, and let A be necessarily with every C, but B happen to be with every C. Therefore, since A is necessarily with every C, but C is contingent to a certain B, A will also be contingently and not necessarily with some certain B. For thus it is concluded in the first figure. It can be similarly proved if B, C be assumed as necessary, but A, C contingent. Example 1. It happens that every man is white. It is necessary that every man should be an animal. Therefore, it happens that some animal is white. It happens that every man is white. It is necessary that some animal should be a man. Therefore, it happens that some animal is white. Again, let one premise be affirmative, but the other negative, and let the affirmative be necessary. Let also A happen to be with no C, but let B necessarily be with every C. Again, there will be the first figure. For the negative premise signifies the being contingent. It is evident, therefore, that the conclusion will be contingent. For when the premises were thus in the first figure, the conclusion was also contingent. But if the negative premise be necessary, the conclusion will be that it is contingent, not to be with something, and that it is not with it. For let A be supposed necessarily not with C, but contingent to every B. Then the affirmative proposition B, C being converted, there will be the first figure, and the negative premise will be necessary. But when the premises are thus, it results that A happens not to be with a certain C, and that it is not with it. Wherefore, it is necessary also that A should not be with a certain B. When, however, the minor premise is assumed negative, there will be a syllogism, if that be contingent by the premise being converted as in the former cases. But if it be necessary, there will not be, for it is necessary to be with every, and happens to be with none. Let the terms of being with every individual be sleep, a sleeping horse, man, of being with none, sleep, a waking horse, man. Example 2. It happens that every man sleeps. It is necessary that no man should be a sleeping horse. It is necessary that every sleeping horse should sleep. It happens that every man sleeps. It is necessary that no man should be a waking horse. It is necessary that no waking horse should sleep. It will happen in the same way if one term be joined to the middle universally, but the other partially. For both being affirmative, there will be a syllogism of the contingent, and not of the absolute. Also, when the one is assumed as negative, but the other affirmative, and the affirmative is necessary. But when the negative is necessary, the conclusion will also be of the not being present with, for there will be the same mode of demonstration, whether the terms are universal or not universal, since it is necessary that the syllogisms be completed by the first figure, so that it is requisite that the same should result in these, as in those. When however the negative, universally assumed, is joined to the less extreme, if it be contingent, there will be a syllogism by conversion, but if it be necessary, there will not be, and this may be shown in the same mode as in universals, and by the same terms. Example 3. It happens that some man sleeps. It is necessary that no man should be a sleeping horse. It is necessary that every sleeping horse should sleep. It happens that some man sleeps. It is necessary that no man should be a waking horse. It is necessary that no waking horse should be asleep. Wherefore in this figure it is evident when and how there will be a syllogism, and when of the contingent, and when of the absolute. All also it is clear are imperfect, and are perfected by the first figure. Chapter 23. It is demonstrated that every syllogism is completed by the first figure. That the syllogisms then in these figures are completed by the universal syllogisms in the first figure, and are reduced to these, is evident from what has been said, but that in short every syllogism is thus, will now be evident, when it shall be shown that every syllogism is produced by some one of these figures. It is then necessary that every demonstration and every syllogism should show either something in esse or non in esse, and this either universally or partially. Moreover, either ostensively or by hypothesis. A part, however, of that which is by hypothesis is produced per impossible. Therefore, let us first speak of the ostensive syllogisms, and when these are shown, it will be evident also in the case of those leading to the impossible, and generally of those by hypothesis. If then it is necessary to syllogize A of B, either as being with, or as not being with, we must assume something of something. If then A be assumed of B, that which was from the first proposed will be assumed to be proved, but if A be assumed of C, but C of nothing, nor anything else of it, nor of A, there will be no syllogism, for there is no necessary result from assuming one thing of one, so that we must take another premise. If then A be assumed of something else, or something else of A, or of C, there is nothing to hinder a syllogism. It will not however appertain to B from the assumptions, nor when C is predicated of something else, and that of another, and this last of a third. If none of these belong to B, neither thus will there be a syllogism with reference to B, since in short we say that there never will be a syllogism of one thing in respect of another, unless a certain middle is assumed, which refers in some way to each extreme in predication. For a syllogism is simply from premises, but that which pertains to this in relation to that is from premises belonging to this in relation to that. But it is impossible to assume a premise relating to B, if we neither affirm nor deny anything of it, or again of A in relation to B, if we assume nothing common, but affirm or deny certain peculiarities of each. Hence a certain middle of both must be taken, which unites the predications, if there shall be a syllogism of one in relation to the other. Now, if it is necessary to assume something common to both, this happens in a threefold manner. since we either predicate A of C and C of B, or C of both, or both of C. But these are the before mentioned figures. It is evident that every syllogism is necessarily produced by some one of these figures, for there is the same reasoning, if A be connected with B, even through many media, for the figure in many media will be the same. Wherefore, that all ostensive syllogisms are perfected by the above named figures is clear. Also that those per impossible are so perfected will appear from these, for all syllogisms concluding per impossible collect the false, but they prove by hypothesis the original proposition, when contradiction being admitted some impossibility results. As for instance, that the diameter of a square is incommensurate with the side, because a common measure being given, the odd would be equal to the even. They collect then that the odd would be equal to the even, but show from hypothesis that the diameter is incommensurate, since a falsity occurs by contradiction. This then it is to syllogize per impossible, namely to show an impossibility from the original hypothesis, so that as by reasonings leading to the impossible, an ostensive syllogism of the false arises, but the original proposition is proved by hypothesis, and we have before said about ostensive syllogisms that they are perfected by these figures. It is evident that syllogisms also per impossible will be formed through these figures. Likewise, all others which are by hypothesis, for in all there is a syllogism of that which is assumed, but the original proposition is proved by confession, or some other hypothesis. Now, if this is true, it is necessary that every demonstration and syllogism should arise through the three figures before named, and this being shown, it is manifest that every syllogism is completed in the first figure, and is reduced to universal syllogisms in it. Chapter 24. Of the quality and quantity of the premises in syllogisms, of the conclusion. Moreover, it is necessary in every syllogism that one term should be affirmative, and one universal, for without the universal there will not be a syllogism, or one not pertaining to the thing proposed, or the original question will be the subject of petition. For let it be proposed that pleasure from music is commendable. If then any one should require it to be granted that pleasure is commendable, and did not add all pleasure, there would not be a syllogism. But if that a certain pleasure is so, if indeed it is a different pleasure, it is nothing to the purpose. But if it is the same, it is a petitio principii. This will however be more evident in diagrams. For instance, let it be required to show that the angles at the base of an isosceles triangle are equal. Let the lines A, B be drawn to the center of a circle. If then he assumes the angle A, C to be equal to the angle B, D, not in short requiring it to be granted that the angles of semicircles are equal, and again that C is equal to D, not assuming the whole angle of the section, if besides he assumes that equal parts being taken from equal whole angles, the remaining angles E, F are equal, he will beg the original question, unless he assumes that if equals are taken from equals, the remainders are equal. Wherefore in all syllogisms we must have an universal. Universal is also shown from all universal terms, but the particular in this or that way, so that if the conclusion be universal, the terms must of necessity be universal, but if the terms be universal, the conclusion may happen not to be universal. It appears also that in every syllogism either both premises or one of them must be similar to the conclusion. I mean not only in its being affirmative or negative, but in that it is either necessary, or absolute, or contingent. We must also have regard to other modes of predication. In a word then, it is shown when there will and will not be a syllogism, also when it is possible, and when perfect, and that when there is a syllogism, it must have its terms according to some one of the above modes. Chapter 25. Every syllogism consists of only 3 terms, and of 2 premises. It appears that every demonstration will be by 3 terms, and no more, unless the same conclusion should result through different arguments, as E through A, B, and through C, D, or through A, B, A, C, and B, C. For there is nothing to prevent many media subsisting of the same conclusions, but these being many, there is not one syllogism, but many syllogisms, or again, when each of the propositions A, B is assumed by syllogism, as A through D, E, and again B through F, G, or when the one is by induction, but the other by syllogism. Thus in this manner indeed there are many syllogisms, for there are many conclusions, as A and B and C, and if there are not many but one, it is thus possible that the same conclusion may arise through many syllogisms, but in order that C may be proved through A, B, it is impossible. For let the conclusion be E, collected from A, B, C, D. It is then necessary that some one of these should be assumed with reference to something else, as a whole, but another as a part, for this has been shown before, that when there is a syllogism, some of the terms should necessarily thus subsist. Let then A be thus with reference to B. From these there is a certain conclusion, which is either E, or C, or D, or some other different from these. Now, if E is concluded, the syllogism would be from A, B alone, but if C, D are so as that the one is universal and the other particular, something also will result from these, which will either be E, or A, or B, or something else different from these, and if E is collected, or A, or B, there will be either many syllogisms, or, as it was shown possible, the same thing will happen to be collected through many terms. If, however, anything else different from these is collected, there will be many syllogisms unconnected with each other, but if C is not so with respect to D, as to produce a syllogism, they will be assumed to no purpose except for the sake of induction, or concealment, or something of the sort. Still, if from A, B, not E, but some other conclusion is produced, and from C, D, either one of these, or something different from these, many syllogisms arise, yet not of the subject, for it was supposed that the syllogism is of E. If again there is no conclusion from C, D, it will happen that they are assumed in vain, and the syllogism is not of the primary problem, so that it is evident that every demonstration and every syllogism will be through 3 terms only. This then being apparent, it is also clear that a syllogism consists of 2 premises, and no more, for 3 terms are 2 premises, unless something is assumed over and above, as we observed at first, for the perfection of the syllogisms. Hence it appears that in the syllogistic discourse, in which the premises, through which the principal conclusion is collected, are not even, for it is requisite that some of the former conclusions should be premises, this discourse is either not syllogistically constructed, or has required more than is necessary to the thesis. When then the syllogisms are taken according to the principal propositions, every syllogism will consist of propositions which are even, but of terms which are odd, for the terms exceed the premises by 1, and the conclusions will be half part of the premises. When however the conclusion results through prosyllogisms, or through many continued middles, as A, B, through C, D, the multitude of terms in like manner will exceed the premises by 1, for the term interpolated will be added either externally or in the middle, but in both ways it will happen that the intervals are fewer than the terms by 1, but the propositions are equal to the intervals. The former indeed will not always be even, but the latter odd, but alternately when the propositions are even, the terms are odd, but when the terms are even, the propositions are odd, for together with the term, one proposition is added, wherever the term is added. Hence, since the propositions were even, but the terms odd, it is necessary they should change when the same addition is made. But the conclusions will no longer have the same order, neither with respect to the terms, nor to the propositions, for one term being added, conclusions will be added less than the pre-existent terms by 1, because to the last term alone there is no conclusion made, but to all the rest, e.g. if D is added to A, B, C, 2 conclusions are immediately added, the one to A, and the other to B. The same occurs in the other cases also, if the term be inserted in the middle, after the same manner, for it will not make a syllogism to one term alone, so that the conclusions will be many more than the terms, and than the propositions. End of chapter 25. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards.